Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving deep into the world of European manufacturing, specifically the rise of what some are calling AI factories. We're going to be unpacking some fascinating research from Jörg-Owe, and it paints a pretty compelling picture of the future.
It really is a fascinating shift, isn't it? The European Commission it seems to be putting a lot of emphasis on AI, not just as like a tech trend, but as a core driver of their manufacturing industry.
Yeah. It's like they're saying, hey, we may not be Silicon Valley, but we can lead the world in how AI transforms how things are made. But before we get all starry-eyed about, robot overlords and all that, let's break it down. What exactly makes a factory an AI factory? I mean, is it just a bunch of robots, welding things together?
It's a lot more nuanced than that. Schneeppert describes it as an ecosystem where you have this constant flow of data coming from all parts of the factory, feeding into seriously powerful computers that are crunching the numbers and making decisions in real time.
So it's like the factory itself is learning and adapting as it goes.
Exactly. And the real game changer here is that 17 European countries are collaborating on this. They're pooling their expertise and resources. You've got Finland, with its strong ICT sector, Germany with its manufacturing prowess. It's a pretty impressive team effort.
It does sound like Europe's kind of trying to flex its muscles on the global stage.
Yeah.
Especially with competition heating up from, China and the US.
Mm.
But this whole AI thing raises some big questions, right? Like, what about the impact on jobs? Are we all going to be replaced by robots?
I mean, that's the question everyone jumps to. It's understandable. But Schneeppert's research actually points to a more complex reality. Yes, some jobs will inevitably be, displaced. But the idea of robots taking over is a bit of a caricature.
So what's the real story then?
Well, think about it this way. Someone has to design, build, and maintain these incredibly complex systems. You need armies of software engineers, data scientists, robotics experts, and even people who specialize in, the ethics of AI.
Okay, so new jobs will emerge, but they'll require very different skills. It's almost like a whole new industrial revolution is brewing. But let's get down to brass tacks. What are these AI factories actually capable of doing that traditional factories can't?
Well, imagine a factory that never sleeps, where production runs 24/7 with minimal human intervention. That's the lights out concept.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting closer to reality thanks to AI. Think of it as like the ultimate optimization machine.
That's pretty mind-blowing. And how does all of this play out on the factory floor? Like, what does it actually look like?
Picture this. You've got robots handling those repetitive, physically demanding, or even dangerous tasks, freeing up humans to focus on more complex or creative work. And these robots aren't just, blindly following instructions. They're connected to sensors and cameras, gathering data about every step of the process. Yeah. And AI is analyzing all of this to optimize everything from energy use to material waste.
So it's not just about speed or efficiency. It's about making manufacturing, smarter and more sustainable.
Exactly. And let's not forget the Internet of Things. This connects all the machines, devices, and even products themselves, allowing them to communicate and coordinate actions in real time.
It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. Yeah. Are there any real-world examples of this actually happening?
Absolutely. Schneeppert highlights a company called Rainers Group in Belgium. They make aluminum and steel building materials, and they started using AI in a very targeted way to prevent coding errors on their products. But here's the interesting part. That initial project opened the door to a whole wave of AI adoption. Now they're looking at using it for automated quality control across their entire production line.
So it's almost like AI can create this ripple effect, starting small and then transforming, entire operations. What about examples of countries working together like we talked about earlier?
One great example is IT4LIA. It's an AI factory project in Italy that also involves Austria and Slovenia. They're creating this hub for AI development and access, particularly for small and medium-sized businesses.
So it's not just about the big players. It's about creating opportunities for smaller companies to get on board with this whole AI revolution.
Exactly. Schneeppert really emphasizes that collaboration is key to success in this space. It's not just about individual companies or even countries. It's about pooling resources, sharing knowledge, and working together to build a competitive European AI landscape.
Okay, so we've got this big picture vision of AI factories, but let's talk regulations. It can't just be a free-for-all, can it?
You're right. There need to be rules of the road. The European Union is working on something called the Artificial Intelligence Act, which aims to balance innovation with responsible AI development.
So setting some ground rules, but not stifling the potential of the technology.
Yeah.
What about the investment side of things? Is Europe actually putting its money where its mouth is on this?
Well, if you look at the US, they're pouring money into AI for manufacturing. It's booming over there. And we're seeing similar trends in Europe. Companies are realizing that AI is a tool they can use right now to improve things like predictive maintenance, quality control, and supply chain optimization.
Okay, so it's not just some futuristic fantasy. It's actually happening now.
Oh.
It sounds like AI factories could be a real game changer for Europe. But there are also some potential pitfalls we need to watch out for, right?
Absolutely. And that's what we'll be digging into in part 2 of our deep dive. We'll explore some of the challenges and complexities of implementing AI on such a large scale.
Sounds good. We'll be back soon to unpack even more insights from Jörg-Owe research.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
We're continuing our exploration of Europe's AI factories, building on the insights from Jörg-Owe.
And as promised, we're going, beyond the hype to explore some of the real challenges of turning this vision into reality.
Right. Because it's one thing to talk about, interconnected factories with robots and AI running the show, but actually making it happen. That's a whole different ball game. What are some of the hurdles we need to clear?
Well, I think one of the most fundamental ones is the need for a rock-solid technological infrastructure. Schneepat highlights that, we're not just talking about Wi-Fi here. We're talking high-speed internet across entire regions, reliable power grids that can handle the increased demand from these data-hungry factories, and, of course, the computing power to process all that data in real time.
It's like building a high-tech house in the middle of nowhere. You need the right foundations before you even start thinking about the fancy stuff. But what about the people who will be working in these factories? Do they need to be like coding wizards or robotics engineers?
Well, there will definitely be a need for those highly specialized roles, but Schneepat also stresses the importance of, upskilling the existing workforce. These AI factories will require a new kind of manufacturing professional, someone who's, comfortable working alongside robots, understanding data analytics, and even troubleshooting AI systems when things go wrong.
So it's not just about learning to code. It's about a whole new way of thinking about manufacturing. It sounds like this is going to require a massive investment in, education and training.
Absolutely. And that's another challenge, finding the money to make all of this happen. Implementing AI at this scale isn't cheap. It requires significant upfront investment. And that can be a major barrier, especially for, those small and medium-sized enterprises that we talked about earlier.
It seems like there's a real risk that this whole AI revolution could create a divide between, those who can afford to invest and those who can't. Is there a way to make sure everyone benefits from this technology?
That's a crucial point. And Schneepat suggests that governments and policymakers need to play a role here. They need to create incentives for investment, provide access to funding, and ensure that the benefits of AI are distributed equitably across all regions and industries.
Okay, so let's say we get the infrastructure in place, we upscale the workforce, and we find the money to invest. What does this actually mean for the future of work? I mean, is this really the end of jobs as we know them?
I think it's more accurate to say that it's a transformation of work. Some jobs will inevitably disappear, but new ones will emerge, often in fields we can't even imagine yet.
It's like trying to predict the internet in the early 90s. No one could have foreseen the explosion of social media or e-commerce. So how do we prepare for jobs that don't even exist yet?
That's where the idea of lifelong learning comes in. It's no longer enough to get a degree and just coast on that knowledge for your entire career. We need to be constantly adapting, learning new skills, and embracing new technologies.
It sounds like we need a fundamental shift in our mindset about work. But let's get back to the economics of all this. We keep hearing about how AI factories are going to boost Europe's economy. How exactly is that supposed to work?
Well, one of the most significant impacts will be increased productivity. AI can automate tasks, optimize processes, and even predict potential problems before they occur, leading to faster production times, lower costs, and higher quality products.
So AI factories could make European goods more competitive on the global market, But wouldn't that also lead to like lower wages or fewer jobs for humans? How do we find that balance between economic growth and protecting workers?
That's where things get really tricky. Schneppet doesn't shy away from these, difficult questions. He suggests that we need to rethink our social safety nets and explore new models of work, perhaps even something like a universal basic income.
It's fascinating to think about how technology is forcing us to reconsider our fundamental, economic and social structures. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the ethical implications of all of this.
This is a huge area, and it's one that Schneppet dedicates a significant portion of his research to. We're talking about powerful technologies that have the potential to reshape our world, and we need to ensure they're used responsibly.
So what are some of the, key ethical considerations when it comes to AI factories?
Well, data privacy is a big one. These factories are collecting vast amounts of information about everything from production processes to worker behavior, and we need to ensure that data is used responsibly and that, individuals' rights are protected.
You're like the Wild West of data. And we need to establish some rules of the road before things get out of hand. What about algorithmic bias? I've heard a lot about how AI systems can, perpetuate existing inequalities or even create new ones.
That's a valid concern, and it's something that needs to be addressed, from the very beginning. We need to make sure that the algorithms that power these factories are designed in a way that is fair, transparent, and accountable.
It sounds like a massive undertaking. Who's responsible for ensuring that these ethical considerations are taken seriously?
It's a shared responsibility. We need governments to establish clear regulations, companies to develop, ethical frameworks, and individuals to be aware of the potential risks and demand accountability.
This has been a really eye-opening conversation. We've explored the potential benefits of AI factories, but we've also uncovered some of the significant challenges and ethical dilemmas that come with them.
And we're not done yet. Join us for part 3, where we'll wrap up our deep dive into Jörg-Owe Schneppet's research, exploring the future of work and what this all means for Europe's place on the global stage. Welcome back to the deep dive.
We're wrapping up our exploration of Europe's AI factories today, drawing on those key insights from Jörg-Owe Schneppet's research.
In the last 2 parts, we've covered a lot of ground, from the technological nuts and bolts to the economic implications and those tricky ethical considerations.
But now I kind of want to focus on the big picture.
Yeah.
What does all of this mean for the future of work, especially here in Europe?
Well, it's safe to say that the job market is in for a major shakeup. Schneppet's research paints a picture where some traditional manufacturing jobs will inevitably decline, but new opportunities will emerge, many of which we probably can't even conceive of yet.
It's like trying to explain smartphones to someone back when all we had were rotary phones.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to grasp the full potential or the potential disruptions that are coming.
Exactly. And that's why Schneppet stresses the importance of adaptability and lifelong learning. It's not enough to learn one skill and just, ride it out until retirement anymore. Workers will need to be constantly upgrading their knowledge and embracing new technologies.
So it's about staying ahead of the curve, being open to new possibilities, and maybe even, reinventing yourself a few times throughout your career. But let's talk about Europe's place in this global AI race. We've got these ambitious plans for AI factories. But how do we stack up against, giants like China and the U.S.?
Well, Schneppet argues that Europe actually has a few key advantages. First, there's a strong emphasis on, collaboration and knowledge sharing here, as we've seen with those multi-country AI factory projects. Second, Europe has a long tradition of manufacturing excellence and a skilled workforce that can be upskilled for this, for this new era.
So we're not starting from scratch. We've got a solid foundation to build on. But what about regulations? Can Europe really compete in a global landscape where other countries might have more relaxed approach to AI development?
That's where the European Union's Artificial Intelligence Act comes in. It's a landmark piece of legislation that aims to ensure AI is developed and used responsibly, with a focus on protecting, fundamental rights and ethical principles.
It sounds like Europe is trying to carve out a unique path, balancing innovation with responsibility. But how do other countries view this approach? Could it hinder Europe's competitiveness in the long run?
That's a valid question, and it's something that Schneppet acknowledges. There's a risk that, overly strict regulations could stifle innovation or drive investment elsewhere, but there's also a growing global recognition that we need some guardrails in place,
Yeah.
especially as AI becomes more powerful and pervasive.
It's like we're at a crossroads trying to figure out how to harness the power of AI without, without unleashing unintended consequences. But let's bring it back to the individual level for a moment. If you're someone listening to this right now feeling a bit overwhelmed by all this talk of AI and the future of work, what's the one key takeaway you should leave with?
I think the most important thing is to embrace the idea of lifelong learning. Don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone, learn new skills, and stay curious about the possibilities of technology. The future of work is uncertain, but it's also full of exciting opportunities for those who are willing to adapt and evolve.
That's a great note to end on. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into Jörg-Owe Schneppet's work on Europe's AI factories. We've explored the challenges, the opportunities, and the potential impact of this transformative technology.
And we hope you've come away with a deeper understanding of what this all means for the future of work, for Europe, and for for society as a whole.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.